Hi guys, Craig Powell from Insic Finance here. Just thought I'd put out this short video just to have a little discussion about US rates and where they're headed. So today's Thursday the 16th, 2017, and the Federal Reserve raised their rates 0.25%. So the reasons that they're stating that is because they've got an improving economy, better employment numbers, inflation's starting to tick up a little bit, which is usually an indicator that economies are starting to produce more, spend a bit more money, and generally the economy is heating up. So what they do is they raise rates, raise up the cash rate, which it makes credit a little bit more expensive, and then people actually pull back on their spending and they keep inflation under control. So as we know, since the GFC of 2008, US have had their rates around about near zero during that period, so that's a long period of time that we've had around about zero rates, and during that period they've only raised their rates a couple of times. So they've launched a quantitative easing program during that time, when they've taken a lot more debt. They've taken some private debt from the banks, so they've actually been building their debt quite rapidly, the US government, and trying to stimulate things. House prices are starting to come back a little bit, and they're at that stage now where the Federal Reserve have sort of painted themselves into a corner where they've got the rates still around about 0.5%, and they realise in the next up into 2024 their growth is still going to be 2% or just a little bit under, some just a fraction over, so which is not really gunning ahead or gunning forward. So they realise if there's another credit crunch around the world, or even a credit crunch of their own, and they've got rates near zero, they've got nowhere to go, because the rates are what they use to put their foot down on the pedal to try and make the economy produce more, or take it off when they want it to retract a bit. This is to control inflation. So the average layman in the street might be thinking, oh, rates are raised, they've seen it on the news in the morning, they've read it in the paper, US must be improving, and we're going to track our way back to where we usually sit, rates between 4 and 7%, and everything's going to return to normal. So, but the reason I'm just sort of putting out this video is just to sort of question that theory and to say, it all sounds rosy and it all will return to normal soon, but I question that. Just because of the fact that there is this building debt in the US and all around the world, which is creating this financial malaise, which I don't think is going to go away in a hurry. It's a bit like when you've got a $50,000 owing on your credit card. Unless you pay it off, those repayments keep coming in each month and affecting your household income and the way you live. So, as I said, economic growth in 2024 isn't that high, so where they're going to get the income from to pay off this debt. Now, so I'm just reading from the notes here. So this is the real US predicament. We've got a current national debt of around $20 trillion. So this is how much the US government owes its creditors. So that's the American people, overseas, debt that they've taken on through quantitative easing and bailing out banks and whatever. So $20 trillion, they're up to that. They need to raise their debt ceiling again because their limit on their credit card per se is reached, so they need to go up higher because they've got all these payments. That's come about, as I just mentioned, bailing out banks, funding wars, and quantitative easing, which is pretty much money printing so that they can keep, put money into the economy to keep it running as smoothly as possible, which they've been doing for the last 5 to 7 years. So all these improvements of what I'm saying have been created by debt. So debt here have been used to prop up the economy, which is good for a while until you get going, and then you can pay that debt down. But if I go over the page, I can show you that that equation is getting harder and harder to deal with. So what's the real picture? So this is just pretty much opening up the government's budget ledger and having a looking at what we've got just in very, very general terms. So US government revenue 2017 is going to be $3.6 trillion. So that's money they get coming in from taxpayers and other revenue streams. Government spending is going to be over $4 trillion. So what I'm saying is you've got a deficit of $440 billion there straight away. The majority of that money, 64%, is spent on Social Security, Medicare and Medicaid. So majority of the money is spent on just looking after people in retirement, sick people, people with disabilities, which is fine, but that is rising. That number is rising, and also you've got the baby boomers are retiring, so there's less people out there doing the work to provide the income to keep this whole situation going. Interest repayments on the money that they owe is $266 billion in 2017. So that's a huge amount. So the government, they get receipts, tax receipts coming in, income coming in, but they pretty much have it all spent. There's nothing left over. So what do? How do they actually fund the rest of it? What they do is they borrow from the Social Security Trust, which is a massive trust set up in 1935 by Roosevelt. I think it was to help return soldiers and to help those people fund their retirement. So, and that's got a huge amount of money in it. But the US government is borrowing money from there every year to fund these deficits. Okay, so that's money that they owe the American people, which is all tied into that debt of $20 trillion, which is rapidly rising. So where is the US heading? The debt ceiling needs to be raised again, and you'll probably hear about that in the news very shortly. Low predicted growth for the next 7 years, so their income is not going to improve rapidly to help pay off this debt. Crippling costs of running the country. The debt burden is unsustainable. You've got a retiring workforce. So those things there, which are pretty simplified and general in nature, but just the basic facts there are showing you that the US, even though they've raised rates, they do have the huge inherent problem about how they're going to pay off this debt, and also that is reflected throughout the world. So watch your space, guys. I mean, Federal Reserve are looking at raising rates another couple of times because they want to get it in a range between, say, 1.5% and 2.5%. So, and they really realise that they've got nowhere to go. They have to raise the rates regardless of how the country's going. So watch your space, guys, and I'll give you some further updates as they come through.